ladies and gentlemen. It's Mr. Fisher coming at you today. What is it, Wednesday? Yeah. And we're going to be reading chapter 22 of To Kill a Mockingbird. I want to draw your attention to my newly shorn locks here. Back to what I should be. Yeah, this is the real me. Although I kind of missed that tough biker look I had going on there for a hot minute. Anyway, we left off on chapter 21. And it was right at the end of the trial of Tom Robinson, and we found out that the jury, they had stayed out a really long time, surprisingly so, in the Deep South during this time period, during the Great Depression. They did eventually come back and decide that Tom Robinson was guilty. And we can completely mark that up to racism and the class systems of the time period. Remember, if we had a triangle that were to be Macomb County, at the top of the triangle, the social elites would be like Judge Taylor and Atticus Finch and Miss Maudie and all the city people who live in the town. After that, we would have the country white people. So right over here, we got the country white people like the Cunninghams and the poor farmers and those types of people. And then we've got two more categories. We've got lower class and then the very lowest class. And it's backwards, really. I mean, we all know that. The next lowest below the country people are the Yules, who are complete trash. They are trash by choice. They're trash by nature, and they're always going to be trash. Their attitudes are trash. They don't care about anyone. They don't even care about themselves, really. They live like feral animals, and they represent the worst that society has to offer. And then below them is every single black person in Macomb County, including Calpurnia and Reverend Sykes and Zebo, the garbage truck driver, and all the hardworking, amazing people who just have the unfortunate circumstance of being black during a certain time period. So that is the social hierarchy. And if you are on the bottom, it's almost like a caste system, if you're familiar with it. In the United States, we have class system, right? We have the wealthy elites and the upper class and the middle class. Then we have the lower class and like the working poor, impoverished. And a class system you can change, right? You can pull yourself up by your bootstraps. Although that's a really stupid phrase. And anybody who says it really hasn't thought about it much, because if you've ever tried to lift yourself by your own boots, it's physically impossible. Like you can't just reach down and pick your own boots up. So that phrase is kind of ironic in that it's literally impossible. But you can rise from a lower class in the United States. That's what the American dream's all about, right? Now, in a caste system, things are fixed. And there are a lot of countries throughout the world that have caste systems or have had caste systems throughout society or throughout time. With my juniors right now, I'm reading Siddhartha by Hermann Hesse. It takes place in India a long, long, long time ago. And during that time period, they had caste systems, which means if you were born wealthy elite, you were wealthy elite forever. If you were born at the bottom tier, you're not allowed to move up. It's impossible. There's no way. And so during the Great Depression, during that time of America's history, if you were black, you were pretty much the only true caste in a class system because you were locked in. No matter how amazing you weren't allowed to move up. There was a glass ceiling holding you down. So anyway, I digress a little bit. We are on to chapter 22. The trial's over. Tom Robinson has been found guilty. Jem is upset. And I'm actually going to read a good bit of this chapter. So I'm going to start right here on page 242. It was Jem's turn to cry. His face was streaked with angry tears as we made our way through the cheerful crowd. It ain't right. Think about that juxtaposition right there. The weeping child who knows what this society has done is completely wrong. And then the cheerful crowd, all the people who are relieved that the status quo has been upheld for yet another year. Those people, are they bad? Are they just focusing on a tradition and not evaluating on that tradition or being skeptical about things that have always been done and why they've always been done? Are they evil? Are they good? It's all gray area. It's hard to say. We found Atticus waiting. Atticus was standing under a streetlight, looking as though nothing had happened. His vest was unbuttoned, his collar and tie were neatly in place. His watch chain glistened as he was his impassive self again. It ain't right, Atticus, said Jem. No, son, it's not right. We walked home. Aunt Alexandra was waiting up. She was in her dressing gown, and I could have sworn she had her corset underneath it. I'm sorry, brother. Having never heard her call Atticus brother before, I stole a glance at Jem. He was not listening. He looked up at Atticus and then down at the floor. I wondered if he thought Atticus somehow responsible for Tom Robinson's conviction. Is he all right? Auntie indicated Jem. He'll be so presently, said Atticus. It's a little strong for him. Our father sighed. I'm going to bed, he said. If I don't wake up in the morning, don't call me. I didn't think it was wise in the first place to let them. Now that's Aunt Alexandra about to lecture Atticus, and Atticus is bone weary. He is physically, emotionally exhausted from the proceedings of the court. And so he has no patience with her. Now he loves her because it's his sister, but she's about to lecture him about the propriety of letting kids watch the trial. And he said, "This is their home, sister," said Atticus. "We've made it this way for them. They might as well get used to coping with it." But they don't have to go to the courthouse and wallow in it. Now, this makes me think about people they're not oblivious to inconvenient truths. They are well aware of them, but they like to ignore them because it's unpleasant to think about. Some people, myself included, because science, I believe in climate change, and I believe that climate change is affecting our world in a very negative way, and there's a lot that we could do to change that. There are hundreds of thousands of people out there who are climate deniers. They look at the science and they look at the research and they say, sure, scientists and people who have degrees and have spent their life researching this feel this way, but I read an article on Google, and so I know better. If you don't believe in climate change, I'm sorry. Kind of. At any rate, my question that goes along with this, is it blissful to be ignorant? Okay, there's this turn of phrase, idiomatic phrase, ignorance is bliss. For a small child, if you will, small children have no idea what the world can be like. They don't have the bitterness. They don't know about hate. They don't know about murder. They don't know about violence. They don't know about all those bad things that can happen. And so for them, I think ignorance is bliss. But there comes a point in your life where if you're still ignorant, it's an issue because now it's a choice. There was a philosopher in the 1700s who discussed how some people choose to remain children because it's just easier that way. Like they grow into their adult bodies, but they choose to be ignorant to the pain in the world because if you don't empathize with the pain in the world, your life's going to be a lot easier. You can just focus on your own selfish, egotistic view of the world, and you don't have to worry about other people's pain, other people's situations. It's just a lot easier to remain an ignorant child. And some people do. Now, that's not me talking. That was one of the French philosophers of the 1700s during the European Enlightenment. I'd have to look at my notes to see who it was, but it's interesting because I find it to sometimes be true. And not just in other people. I find it to be true in myself. I think sometimes there are things that we would rather ignore and not think about because it's just easier that way. Maybe we don't have the emotional capacity to deal with it. I'm not sure. Okay. Page 243. I'm going to skip ahead a little bit. Jem turns to Atticus tearfully. He looks up at his father and he says, "How could they do it? How could they?" "I don't know, but they did it. They've done it before, they did it tonight, and they'll do it again. And when they do, it seems that only the children weep." Good night, Jem. That's Atticus signing off for the night. It seems like Atticus has become a little bit embittered by this entire thing. And maybe that's because he has had to face some things that he's always known, but he's never had to stand up for. Because it's easy to be against something, like racism, for example. There are racists, obviously, and then there are people who are not racists. But I think it's a little bit more complicated than that because with anything, there's the two sides. But there is non-racist and there's anti-racist, right? So racism, people who are overtly racist. They do not like other people because of their color. And then we've got people who are not racists, but they don't do anything about it. Like they don't speak up, they don't fight, they don't protest, they don't vocalize their opinions. They don't do anything. They're just non-racist. And then there are people who are anti-racist, people who genuinely are concerned about racial inequity, and so they do what they can. They join government. They start petitions. Maybe whatever. They go out and they protest. And I think that that's not just racism. That's any issue that you truly believe in. There are people who are for, there are people against, but the people who are fighting for something or against something, you're either blah or you're actually compassionate enough to fight for or against it. So that's what Atticus had to do. And actually that takes me to another page here. Miss Maudie Atkinson lives across the road. She's that wise, like sage woman that Scout was drawn to when Jem started to become a teenager, and now Jem and Dill and Scout all hang out with her on occasion. And she speaks up and she says, "Don't fret, Jem. Things are never as bad as they seem." Indoors, when Miss Maudie wanted to say something lengthy, she spread her fingers on her knees and settled her bridge work. This she did, and we waited. "I simply want to tell you that there are some men in this world who are born to do our unpleasant jobs for us. Your father's one of those men." "Oh," said Jem. "Well." "Don't you oh well me, sir," Miss Maudie replied, recognizing Jem's fatalistic noises. "You're not old enough to appreciate what I said." Jem was staring at his half-eaten cake. It's like being a caterpillar in a cocoon. That's what it is," he said. "Like something asleep wrapped in a warm place. I always thought Maycomb folks were the best folks in the whole world. At least that's what they seemed like." "We're the safest folks in the world," said Miss Maudie. "We're so rarely called upon to be Christians, but when we are, we've got men like Atticus to do it for us." Jem grinned ruefully. "With the rest of the I wish the rest of the country thought that. You'd be surprised how many people do." "Who?" Jem's voice rose. "Who in this town did one thing to help Tom Robinson? You tell me that." "His colored friends, for one thing, and people like us, people like Judge Taylor, people like Heck Tate. Stop eating and start thinking, Jem. Did it ever strike you that Judge Taylor naming Atticus to defend the boy was no accident? What Judge Taylor might have been, what may have been Judge Taylor's reason for assigning Atticus, a veteran lawyer, to a trial that should have gone to a more junior member?" "It's all right to talk like that. Can't any Christian judges and lawyers make up for heathen juries?" Judge muttered. "Soon as I'm grown." "Well, that's something you'll have to take up with your father," Miss Maudie said. We went down to Miss Maudie's cool new steps into the sunshine and found Mr. Avery and Miss Stephanie Crawford still at it. They'd moved down the sidewalk and were standing in front of Miss Stephanie's house. Miss Rachel was walking towards them. "I think I'll be a clown when I get grown," said Dill. Jem and I stopped in our tracks. "Yes, sir, a clown," he said. "There ain't one thing in this world I can do about folks except laugh. So I'm going to join the circus and I'm going to laugh my head off." "You got it backwards, Dill," said Jem. "Clowns are sad. It's the folks that laugh at them." Maybe he doesn't have that backwards. Think about that. "Well, I'm going to be a new kind of clown. I'm going to stand in the middle of the ring and laugh at the folks. Just look yonder," he pointed. "Every one of them ought to be riding broomsticks. Aunt Rachel already does." Miss Stephanie and Miss Rachel were waving wildly at us in a way that did not give a lie to Dill's observation. So I think what he's saying there is they're gigantic hypocrites and they're gossips, right? They all try to pretend to be prim, proper people in society in Maycomb, and they've all got their secrets. Mr. Avery, public urination, probably drinking other things that make him less than a desirable person. Not that he's a bad person, but he's got his flaws. Miss Stephanie Crawford is a horrible, incurable gossip, spreading rumors and all that kind of stuff. That's not good. That's not what stand up or upright people do. You're not a good person if you're a gossip and a rumor monger. It's a bit like a parasite. And then there's Miss Rachel, who's Dill's aunt. She drinks a pint of whiskey every morning. That's crazy. Okay? I've been to college, and I can tell you that that's still crazy. If she really does drink that much whiskey in the morning, then she drinks more than your average, out of control college student. So that's something that she probably doesn't spread around to the people of Macomb. They all act like they're so homogenized, like they're all the same, but they're really not. It goes back to that expression about the three masks that we talked about before. The public face, it's a lie. That's not the real you. The face that you wear at school, the face that you wear when you're at a job interview or when you're at work, that's not the real you. That's a shadow of you. That's a polished manifestation of what you want people to think you are. Then you've got your personal self, and that's the one that you show to your close friends and your family. And while that is more true and less of a shadow, it's still not 100% you. There's still some stuff. There's still some secrets and some issues that you do not expose to those people. And then there's our personal or private self, whatever the third one is. And those are the things that we never tell anybody else. Secret fears, secret ambitions, secret loves, secret hatreds and biases. These are all things that we have that we usually keep buried in our heart of hearts. We don't expose to the public because we fear judgment from other people. So many people in our world and in our society fear judgment from other people. And I think the older you get, the less you care about what other people think about you. I know in high school, I cared a lot, especially middle school. You've got this whole invisible audience complex where you think everybody is watching you all the time and judging you, which is sometimes true, but not all the time, because they're just as busy being awkward as you are. But the older you get, I'd say somewhere in your mid-30s, it's really freeing to just stop caring what other people think of you and just start being your true self and living your best life, trying to be who you are unapologetically and stand up for what you believe in. And it's a tremendous amount of weight to lift off of your chest. A lot of anxiety is gone when you get to that point. And so if you can, I would advise you to try to get yourself to that point sooner, because it doesn't help to worry about things. It doesn't help. If you worry about things, you're only suffering them twice. You're suffering the worry, and then you're suffering the actual painful event that you're concerned about. So just think about that. Ooh, sage words from the fish. There's one other thing I'm going to read in this chapter. It's the very end. Something was wrong. Mr. Avery was red in the face from a sneezing spell and nearly blew us off the sidewalk when we came up. Miss Stephanie was trembling with excitement, and Miss Rachel caught Dill's shoulder. "Y'all get back in the yard and stay there," she said. "There's a danger coming." "What's the matter?" I asked. "Ain't you heard yet? It's all over town." At that moment, Aunt Alexandra came to the door and called us, but she was too late. It was Miss Stephanie's pleasure to tell us. "This morning, Mr. Bob Ewell stopped Atticus at the post office corner and spat square in his face. He told him he'd get him if it took him the rest of his life." That's the end of chapter 22. So at first, we start off the chapter with like low, somber, gray mood of the kids being sad and depressed because they're starting to get a picture, especially Jem, of how society can be much more grim than we think it is. And then we get a little bit uplifted by Miss Maudie, who teaches the kids that although if we focus on the truly negative things, we start to get overwhelmed and think everything is bad. But that's not the truth either. Life is not black and white. It's gray. Even people are not good or bad. They're gray. There are maybe good people with bad characteristics or bad people with good characteristics. Nobody's all good or all bad, except maybe like hyperbolized horror people. But, Hitler was a jerk. He was bad. No good ideas. Mussolini, dictators, those types of people. They're bad. Okay? I'm not going to argue that. But most people, average people, are neither all good nor all bad. So we go from low to kind of high. We start to get a really good picture of the world. And then the kids they start to become a little bit more cynical and judgmental as they're looking at the adults. They're judging them. They're looking at their good qualities and their poor qualities. And then at the very end, we get this exciting cliffhanger that Bob Ewell has now threatened to kill Atticus Finch. Why, though? He won. Why would he want to kill Atticus? What is his motivation? Is the question I'm asking you. That's your job. That's your task for me. Read this chapter again if you need to. Possibly go to Schmoop or SparkNotes and take a look at it and figure out, based on the proceedings of the trial and the fact that Bob Ewell won, his side won, Tom Robinson's in jail for a rape that he didn't commit. Why is he so angry at Atticus? There's one other thing I forgot to mention in this chapter. At the very beginning of the chapter, Atticus gets up for breakfast, and he finds out that all of the people of color in Maycomb have brought him presents. Tom Robinson's dad, lady that works down at the hotel, people from all over town. And they are truly appreciative of Atticus Finch. But he lost. Tom Robinson's in jail, facing the death sentence. Why do they appreciate what Atticus did when in the long run, he didn't really help Tom Robinson at all? Or did he? So I guess I got two questions for you. One, why does Bob Ewell want to kill Atticus? And two, why are the people of color in Maycomb so appreciative of Atticus when he lost? He failed. Interesting. All right, that's all I got for you today. To Kill a Mockingbird, baby. Make sure you read it. Enjoy this book. It's really good. It's one of my favorites. So you got your assignment for today. I'll be posting it on Google Classroom very soon if it's not already there. And I just want you guys to have a great night. Stay safe, stay healthy, support some local business. You know, if you want to get some food from JT's Pizza or Gravel Bottom Brewery, best food in town, encourage your parents to eat there. They're not really a sponsor. I just love those guys. So anyway, take care, be safe, be smart, read a book, wash your hands. Peace.